Good evening. Welcome to the South Pasadena Town Hall City Council Candidates Forum. My name is Linda Waugh, and I'm the Pasadena City College Trustee for Area 5, which includes South Pasadena, San Marino, and Temple City. So I'm so pleased to be able to welcome you all and to introduce you to the candidates running for the City Council. I want to go over some of the instructions that the candidates were given so that you know the format. So all candidates were given all of the questions 1 hour before the start of the forum. These questions can also be viewed by the audience through a link sent in the Q&A. Candidates have been randomly ordered, and the order is, we will start with Alan Ehrlich, Evelyn Zeimer, Jack Donovan, Michelle Hammond, John Primuth, and Bob Joe. So each candidate will have a chance to answer 5 questions in round 1. And the candidates will be called in the order I just read. The responses will be limited to 1 minute with a 20-second warning. The candidate will then be muted after, if they're in mid-sentence, they're going to have a brief time to complete, but then they will be muted. Each candidate will then participate in a lightning round of 5 questions, 30-second responses with no warning. So the candidates will be muted, as I said, after that time, but then will be given that brief time to complete a sentence. At the end of prepared questions, round 2, all candidates will be given 1 minute to rebut or clarify their positions. We will then start with round 3 with questions from the audience that have been submitted through the Q&A. An audience will have a chance to give their ranking through a thumbs up on any of those questions. So we will be ending with the closing statements, and the candidates will be called in reverse order. So I want to thank the WISPPA group, the Women in South Pasadena for Political Activism, and the South Pasadenan for hosting this important event for all of the city. So with that, let's welcome our candidates. From District 1, Bob Joe and Evelyn Zeimer.
He needs to be connected to our juggernaut.
We need to mute. So, excuse me. So from District 1, Bob Joe and Evelyn Zeimer. From District 3, Alan Ehrlich, Michelle Hammond, and John Primuth. And on District 5, Jack Donovan. So let's welcome these candidates, and we'll start with our first candidate to give his introduction. So everyone else, please mute to respect the candidate giving their statement and answering the questions. Alan, go ahead and unmute yourself and start your candidate opening.
Great, thank you, Linda. Thank you, WISPPA. I've been a resident of South Pasadena for 20 years. I have 2, you're going to hear from everybody, lovely children. So I'm going to say not so lovely children that have grown up through our school system. One's in college, one's a senior at the high school. I have over 20 years of corporate finance and operations experience, which is going to be deeply needed to tackle the problems that the city is facing today. My passion for city government started in November 2011 during what was called the Great Windstorm event. And I would have thought after 100 years of preparing for the big one, our city would have been better prepared for some down trees and power lines, and we weren't, and that got me nervous. So since 2011, I've been very passionate about public safety. I'm actually working on a master's degree in emergency services administration right now. Thank you.
Thank you, Alan. We'll start with the next candidate, Evelyn Zeimer. Evelyn?
Good evening. Thank you, WISPPA and South Pasadena. I am qualified to run for City Council for the following reasons. I'm a long-term resident of more than 35 years in this city. I have volunteered for 30 years. I served for 14 years in 2 commissions. I am the elected city clerk. When Sergio Gonzalez was the city manager, he included me in the city process, and we discussed staffing of city clerk department, finances, and responsibilities. I participated in interviewing city clerk candidates and boosted personnel morale in my department. I'm the owner and operator of my own law firm for over 22 years, so I understand how to balance the budget and make tough decisions on personal matters and be a successful small business owner. Additionally, prior to becoming a lawyer, I work in the world of finance. I work in a portfolio management and investment firm.
Evelyn, you got muted. We need to unmute you. Can you unmute yourself?
Pushed it, sorry.
Yeah, can we restart that timer so that Evelyn can finish her closing or her opening? I'm sorry. Go ahead, Evelyn.
Additionally, prior to becoming a lawyer, I worked in the world of finance. I worked in a portfolio management and investment firm. I was also an institutional government and money market securities trader. These jobs required a deep understanding of finances, budgets, and portfolio management. I volunteered on multiple charitable boards, handling and developing budgets, fundraising strategies, and developing long-term growth. My work experience both in the private and government sectors provided me with skills to understand finance, budgets, and personal management. I have two grown children now. They were born and raised here in South Pas and went through our beautiful schools, and they are now successful in their own right. So with my experience, I can make a difference for our city and be a voice for change. Thank you.
Thank you, Evelyn. Now we have Jack Donovan. Jack, you want to unmute yourself and start your opening?
Hey, tell me when.
Yes, you're good. Go ahead and start.
I've lived in South Pasadena for 39 years. I know the city is special to all of us. Unfortunately, the city faces many problems right now because the current leadership has failed to address them. Historically high turnover, and some of these are high turnover in key positions, low morale, no budget since 2019, commission inputs for advice is totally ignored. Residents are treated with indifference at City Hall, and the city administration is not adequately planned for smart development. Preservation of a role of city character is essential. I'll strive to be accessible, transparent, and to encourage community involvement in my decision-making. I am asking for your vote to be a voice in District 2 on the City Council. Thank you, WISPPA, for organizing this debate, and thanks to all of you for taking the time to care enough about our city to attend tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Jack. So next we have Michelle Hammond. Michelle, unmute yourself.
All right. 10 years ago, I chose to raise my children in South Pasadena for likely the same reasons as you: top-notch schools, social and economic diversity, and a small town feel. My family is tied to our community, and we value the importance of local advocacy. It's, in fact, my children's commitment to activism on climate issues that inspired me to take a leap and run for city council. As a single mother, environmental champion, business owner, renter, and daughter of an immigrant, I offered the city council more inclusive representation of our residents than my fellow candidates in my district. The need for balanced and active oversight from our city has never been greater. It's time for our commissioners and community input to truly be taken into consideration. I have over 15 years as an executive producer to deal with budgets for Fortune 500 companies, and my experience as owning Munch here in the city will also give the City Council a better understanding of the struggles facing our small businesses, which will be greatly needed for the next coming years as we recover from COVID. And my environmental advocacy and knowledge will help us make greater strides during our current climate crisis. Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. Next, we have John Primuth. John, unmute yourself and begin.
For the last almost 5 years, I've had the privilege of serving on the governing board for the South Pasadena Unified School District. In that capacity, I've learned how to manage a public agency, learning everything from public budgeting, how that works, how to analyze and audit, how to deal with public employee unions and legal affairs, and how to listen carefully to the constituents. There's a whole skill set needed to be an effective city council member, and all the skills that I think I've learned have transfer over quite well. The biggest need in the city right now is the need for a healthy governing culture. When I think about all the problems and the incidents over the last few years, almost all of them are traceable to the absence of a strong, value-based governing culture. We've seen factions, we've seen secrecy, we've seen apathy. The city council sets the tone for the city government from the city manager on down. It starts with creating a healthy governing culture. I've seen it happen, and I'll be sharing more about that later this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, John. And our sixth candidate, Bob Joe. Bob, can you please unmute yourself and begin?
Dave. He's not muted.
We can hear him.
We can't. I can't hear him.
So while Bob is getting ready, someone asked that I announce the districts, which I did at the beginning, but I will announce it again. District 1 is Bob Joe and Evelyn Zeimer. District 3 is Alan Ehrlich, Michelle Hammond, and John Primuth. And District
Okay.
5 is Jack Donovan. You ready, Bob?
I am. I hope the
Okay,
computer
go
is.
ahead. All right,
Okay.
go ahead.
My experience, knowledge, and ability to work constructively with others makes me the best candidate to serve the city as a District 1 council member. I am serving in my second term as mayor this year, and during a time in which the council and I have faced and met unparalleled challenges. As mayor this year, I have led the effort to resolve critical issues in city government. The council and I realized that the management of our city was not serving the community. We took swift action to correct the situation. Within weeks, we accepted the resignation of the city manager and appointed Fire Chief Riddle as acting city manager, and recruited an experienced professional to focus on finance issues. I am pleased to announce that we are very close to appointing an interim city manager. Clearly, my involvement during this difficult period and my in-depth understanding of city operations are essential to continuing to restore trust to City Hall. As the city District 1 representative, I have been addressing district-specific concerns and will continue to do so if reelected. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. And I am sorry I misstated the districts, and I will read them again, so my apologies. District 1 is Bob Joe and Evelyn Zeimer. District 3 is Alan Ehrlich, Michelle Hammond, and John Primuth. District 2 is Jack Donovan. Okay, so that was the easy stuff. You guys ready for the hard stuff? Okay, so we will now start in order with Alan Ehrlich. So Alan for District 3 will start the first round of questions. Alan, as no one can predict the future economic ups and downs and how voters may respond to continuous tax levies, what specific actions would you take as a council member to ensure stability of critical services and to establish a stable, guaranteed revenue source?
One, I would disagree that we can't predict future economic ups and downs. From all the national data we've been seeing so far and from the state, we have a pretty good idea that 25 to 30% of our businesses may never reopen. So we can plan for that right now when we do our budgeting and know that our sales tax revenue will be down, that businesses that depend upon other businesses for people to come in and have food, meals, is going to be down. There are algorithms, we can look at that. In terms of how do we ensure the stability of critical services, first we need a few community forums, because everyone I've ever attended, police is critical, fire is critical, the library is critical, public works is critical. And we need the community to tell us which of these are more critical.
Thank you, Alan. Okay, so the same question to Evelyn. Evelyn, can you unmute yourself? Evelyn, the same question?
Where's Evelyn?
Okay. One of the things that I would like to ensure stability of critical services and to establish a stable guaranteed revenue source is to be innovative. One idea is to provide senior affordable housing. We have a block of lots there from Fremont, where the Fremont Theater is, and all the way to the artist workshop. We can develop that into a senior affordable housing, and also with mixed use, like the setting in Los Angeles downtown, where they have restaurants and places to shop. So we can provide our seniors, which is over 60% of our population, to survive in South Pasadena and to spend their limited income to our city. That ensures that we will retain permanent or guaranteed revenues. Also, in addition, we have the UUT, although now it's being proposed as a permanent tax levy that can be changed by the voters itself. The revenues for UUT guarantees different many services, and that also guarantees that services in the community is not interrupted. Thank you.
Thank you, Evelyn. Same question, Jack Donovan. Jack, unmute yourself. Jack, you need to unmute yourself. I think you're muted. I think you can start. Do you want to test it?
Okay, can I start?
Okay, yeah, start.
Okay, thank you. Sound financial management is the cornerstone of all local governance. And that means that all of us that we must require accurate financial statements and budget audited by an independent financial accounting firm. This must happen each and every year, and it must happen in a timely fashion. We need to look at what services provide revenue and options to grow them. Providing specific examples on action to take is extremely difficult right now, because without having the past audit and a budget, we just can't plan to establish guaranteed a revenue service at this time. Thank you.
Thank you, Jack. Michelle, same question. Michelle, unmute yourself, please. Jack, can you mute yourself?
All right, I am unmuted. So I think right now our biggest bet is working with our low-hanging fruit and working with efficiency, right? Because our budgets are so strained, and working with the taxes that we already have in place with the UUT and sales tax, and make sure that we get the UUT passed again. And then our sales tax, I feel like instead of planning on 20-30% of our businesses failing, that we actually put things in place to help them not fail. A lot of our small business members, like how myself were, or our beloved members of our community, they need our help, and by enacting plans like what we did with Alfresco, I think that's only a small handful because it only helps a small portion that does a trickle down effect, but I think we could do more. And then it's also, you know, working with efficiency, with making sure that we don't do plans over plans, that we actually enact things that have already been passed in the past. And then that way we can actually move forward less money than making more grandiose plans.
Okay, thank you, Michelle. So next candidate, John, same question. Please unmute yourself.
I think the first step to securing a stable financial situation in South Pasadena is to get a handle on our finances, make sure the finance department is operating in a way that's efficient, that they're producing a budget that can be relied on, that the audit is showing no discrepancies. That is essential. That's a specific action. Some of that's already underway. We need to understand that the UUT is critical to how our city operates. We do not want to go back to a big redistributive pot out of Sacramento. Sacramento and all the state taxes will not give us enough money. We need that little extra in the UUT. South Pasadena demands more from its residents and from its government and services, and the UUT helps us get there. I think we need economic development. We need to have more sales and property tax coming in. Sensible development will help us. Incrementally, I'm not talking about Alhambra build out, not Pasadena build out, but something that makes sense for us. And then.
Thank you, John. Bob Joe, same question, please. Bob, please unmute yourself.
Am I unmuted now?
You are now unmuted.
Thank you very much. First thing is that we need to pass the UUT tax renewal. It is very important. If we don't, we're going to have to find $3 million a year somewhere, and that's going to be very, very difficult. We need to expedite approvals of the remodeling, of doing ADUs, of doing businesses where we need to encourage also, where, as an example, grocery outlet, they needed to expedite a review process from our permitting folks, building and permitting. And they got it finally. But, you know, we had to get involved a little bit and push. But that's what is needed to bring in new businesses. Grocery outlet is one. And then you look on the corner there where the new Starbucks is. And
thank you, Bob. So I just want to remind the candidates, just you're following the candidate just before you, and so just remember to unmute yourself just before you're called. That way, because otherwise we're having lag. Okay, we now have question 2 in round 1. So we're going to start with Evelyn. So your question is, what would be your approach to the future of policing in South Pasadena and the allocation of the police budget? Evelyn?
I'm currently working with a local justice community group known as the Youth Reformers to address issues of systemic racism that affects also how the police treat people of color. And I'm also supporting some of the sensible solutions put forth by Care First South Pasadena regarding SPPD, that's the South Pasadena Police Department, training and community policing. We have to review our current police policies, training, existing complaints, and review past conduct. We have to ensure that we support community-based solutions and encourage dialogue between the police and the local communities of color. I've always been taught that we must earn trust from the community, and that's what we have to do. And we need to also, for allocation of budget, it depends on the results of the final forensic audit. And then we can
Thank you, Evelyn. Jack, same question. Jack, please unmute yourself. Thank you.
Hey, good morning here. As we recover from COVID crisis, we need to examine all of our expenditures. And I would look to the Public Safety Commission's recommendations for police reform, as well as the Finance Commission's recommendations for public safety spending, to find the right balance between protecting our residents and making wise choices to expand social services. It's 35.5% of the budget with the fire and safety, and 50% of the general fund. We need to look at every part of their budget to see if there's any sense for us as a community. Thank you.
Thank you, Jack. Michelle, same question.
All right. Oh, hold on. Sorry, I just had a
You're
pop-up.
good. We can hear you.
Okay, so I definitely think we need to look at the police budget, and the first thing we look at is transparency and how do we develop a better relationship between the community and the police. We still have not received the 2019 budget review from the police. It's hard to really make any decisions as an outsider as how we can make cuts to that budget until we can really look at that. But that being said, I think it needs to be pulled over with a fine-tooth comb. And there are plenty of social services. And we have a chance with Measure H that already has diverted some of those social services. So to homeless as well. And there's some future programs and opportunities where we can divert some of those funds. And then in place, we have to make sure in audits that we get those funds taken from police and put to other community services within our budget.
Thank you, Michelle. John Prima, same question.
I think we need to effectively make sure that we've got anti-bias training and de-escalation training. As part of the core of what we teach our police, we need professional development to make sure that they are aware of implicit bias and that they are effectively being supervised. We need to make sure we have a better relationship in transparency between the city and the police union. We want to make sure that we are getting the right amount of oversight to make sure that people of color, minorities, those who feel like they've been mistreated are actually part of the process. I also think we need to strengthen our relationship with social service agencies. We want to make sure that we can bring in social workers when needed into the right situation, so police aren't there when escalation could happen. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Bob, Joe?
Unmuted again. Okay. Can you
Bob,
hear
we
me
can
now?
hear you. We can hear you. Go
Okay.
ahead.
Thanks. I will support and work to enact the findings of both the city council and the public safety subcommittees, where they are looking at police reform, and they are really studying it real well, and they're going to come up with some very strong and valuable recommendations. The other area I want to share real quick is on our homeless program. And when we go out, we need to make sure that we have a team that includes mental health, social workers, and medical to be with that group when they are going up and down and inventorying and meeting with our homeless folks. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. Alan, same question?
Yes. Same question. Every police chief across the country, small cities, big cities, county sheriffs, will tell you that their department is the largest social services agency within their jurisdiction. We have some very well-trained police officers, but they're trained in criminal justice, they're trained in use of force, they're trained in de-escalation. And we're asking them to be social workers, psychologists, mental health workers, and that's not the best fit. And we're using very well compensated credentialed law enforcement officers to do the job that a master's of social work, a caseworker, social worker could do more effectively and for less money. Thank you.
Thank you, Alan. Okay, so third question of round one. We're going to start with Jack Donovan. Due to the housing crisis, the state will be requiring cities to build more housing units. What are your suggestions for addressing this requirement?
I support reasonable housing development, and I recognize the need for affordable housing for young families and residents so they can become part of this great city as I and my family did decades ago. However, I want to make sure that any development does not outstrip the city's infrastructure and overburden the city schools. I want to make sure that any new projects reflect the character and the small town nature of our city. We need a coordinated approach with the city and the school officials, neighborhoods, businesses, leaders who are fully engaged in the city planning process in meaningful and fully informed manner. Thank you.
Thank you, Jack. Same question, Michelle.
All right. As with housing, I feel like we do need a reasonable new development for housing. I always plan on the hope for the best, but plan for the worst. And so I believe that we need to build an appropriate amount, and that instead of just, we have families in our city now that need the affordable housing. It's about keeping the families here. I believe that building them by transit, and I also feel like we can look into certain incentives like lowering parking requirements, parking minimums, so that builders can include more affordable housing within their development, and then it'll be more feasible. But yes, I feel like it's needed, and it will also stimulate more revenue for our city.
Thank you, Michelle. John?
The state mandate, which is known as the RENA mandate, is a ridiculous number that is requiring the South Pasadena zoning codes to accommodate 2,000 new units. This is going to really overwhelm our infrastructure, overwhelm our schools. And I suggest two strategies for fighting that. One is a legal strategy where we would have to appeal the RENA allocation. And there's a lot of studies being done on that. That's a good fight. But the bigger fight is going to be political. We need to organize a coalition of similarly affected cities to go to Sacramento. I've put together coalitions on the school board, and we actually spoke into the education debate and made a difference. We can do that as a city.
Thank you, John. Bob? Bob, please unmute yourself.
That's good.
Okay, we can hear you. Start.
Okay. I strongly support appealing the RENA numbers. Having over 2,000 units to plan for housing is crazy. So we need to appeal. Second is that we also need to have certain planning and ordinances in place, though, to at least see what we could do to bring some of those, increase some of the housing units, but we'll never come close to the 2,000. One of them is inclusionary ordinance. Another one could be EDUs, and there could also be things like affordable housing and re-looking at pushing Caltrans for all those homes that they own and get them to sell them. So there is a mixture of a two strategy thing, appeal, but also start planning and coming up with certain ordinances, possibly.
Thank you, Bob. Alan, same question?
Yes. South Pasadena residents, we certainly want to do our part to ease the statewide housing crisis. As the other candidates have said, we need to have smart growth plans and policies in place. Part of where the smart planning starts is that when the SCAG, Southern California Association of Governments, sends out a survey to all of the cities asking them, what can you do? We need to respond to that. And we didn't. And now that we're in this next stage where we're talking about appealing the numbers, at a city council meeting 2 or 3 weeks ago, Councilwoman Mahmood made the point, well, if we get our numbers decreased now, somebody else has to pick that up. She's right. And if we had submitted our feasibility studies a year ago when they had been requested, we would not have been over allocated from the cities that did respond.
Thank you, Alan. Evelyn, same question?
I have maintained that I will support the development of state-mandated inclusionary affordable housing and for use to continue to work with regional agencies to find the appropriate number of units in our community. I support rent control. I work diligently with our renter association to better understand their needs and to continue to protect and support the residents of South Pasadena. This will help maintain our community. So much of our community are renters. So I want for them to stay in the great city of ours, and we cannot lose them. I support the addition of ADU to help provide additional housing within our city. I support housing development in the right places that fit our community and hopefully provide more options for residents. And I don't want a massive housing development in a strictly residential zone, but I think we need to have developed and to be compact and to fit in our existing city design. We need to use the tools that are available to us to try.
Thank you, Evelyn. Okay, we will now start with question 4 under round 1. We will start with Michelle. Michelle, question is, knowing we are facing a budget shortfall, what specific city services do you feel need to be revisited and why?
I feel our community services, social services, services that affect our residents' everyday lives, whether it's library, daycare, businesses, safe street improvements. We need to make sure when we make budget cuts that we make balanced decisions across all services and try not to outsource when possible as solutions in order to retain the same level of service that we are used to as a community. And that's my main comment.
Thank you. Thank you, Michelle. John, same question?
I think it begins with a real in-depth look at whether we're getting the most from the services that we already have. But after we do that analysis, I think my approach would be 2 tiers. The first tier would be protecting all the services to our most vulnerable populations. And that would be seniors, it would be youth, it would be any health services that we offer. And certainly community services and everything that it does adds to the health of our city. So tier 1 services, and of course, that would include public safety. Tier 2 would be everything else, and I think there might be a need for a general across-the-board cut on that. But first, we have to work on efficiency. We do not have efficient in the finance department. We need to improve employee morale because that will increase our efficiency. And I think that's really going to be the key. And I don't think anything needs to be cut unless we can, unless it's not a critical function.
Thank you, John. Bob? Bob? You
I'm
unmute
on.
yourself? Okay.
Yes. Okay. As we look at budget shortfalls, we need to focus on knowing where our budget is, where we are. It's very key to understand that in our finance department, we need to get that moving in the right direction. And we have now picked up a acting deputy city manager to oversee that. I think that's going to help a long way. The other areas that we need to get involved with and is looking at freezes and also looking at not providing COLAs. And then what are some of the community programs? I could tell you, community service programs such as the senior program and the library are very, very precious.
Thank you, Bob. Alan, next, same question.
Yes, I've already brought up the one example of we can look at our police budget and ask if using credentialed law enforcement officers is the most effective way to provide certain services. And I think there are better ways to do that. I think that we need to take a closer look at our management budget because there was a lot of waste in that this year. After the battle over the 710 was finished, I think all the residents in the city were expecting I'll call it a reduction in legal expenses dividend. And we only budgeted $280,000 last year for legal expenses, and we spent twice that. We need to look at our finance department closely. If anything, they need more budget so that we can have confidence in the numbers that they're producing so that we can look at everything else. Thank you.
Thank you, Alan. Evelyn?
We need to revisit all the services in our city. We need to understand exactly what our city needs and the efficient ways of delivering those services. We must ensure that our city staffing levels are sufficient and that we retain staff, and it is important for the delivery of services. We keep losing those institutional knowledge, and it's not just a pay issue, it's an employee happiness and leadership issue. With the police reform, I'm working on the youth to address the issues of systemic racism, and we need to come together as a community to ensure that all South Pasadenans feel safe, welcome, and a part of our wonderful community. First and foremost, we have to talk about the city services, but we have to figure out our city manager, because we are a general law city and the city manager is our leader, and that's being hired by the city council. I don't want to repeat the debacle 3 years ago.
Thank you, Evelyn. Jack, same question.
Okay, I understand that some residents would like an audit of public safety expenditures. The city council should certainly look into the current compensation and the size of the police force, as well as the city's contracts for predictive policing and helicopter surveillance. Review of these services is also needed to determine how effective these contracts improve public safety in our cities. Without a budget, it's hard to know with certainty what departments need reviewing. Thank you.
Thank you, Jack. Okay, so the final question of round one, and we will be starting with John Primuth. John, what are the benchmarks of a healthy local government? And are they present in South Pasadena? If not, what changes would you make?
This is a 1 minute answer. Okay, well.
Yes, 1 minute.
So we need reliable, transparent financial numbers, budget numbers that we can rely on. That's the sign of a healthy of government. But number two, and it's as important, or if not more, is a healthy governing culture, and a culture that has to be governed according to core values. Everyone needs to buy into what the values are by which we get work done. You know, it's not enough to just push and push and push for what you want. You have to have a value by which you get it done. So transparency is important. Respect for everyone is important. And collaboration is important. These are my campaign themes. And to illustrate, if we had transparency as a core value, we never would have withheld the Citygate audit. We would have been working with the residents on our budget problems. If respect had been an issue or a value, we wouldn't have had a subpoena delivered on an unsuspecting resident in such a disrespectful manner. If collaboration was...
Thank you, John. Okay, so that was the hard part. You all had the, oh, I'm sorry, John, you were the first on that. Okay, next is Alan. I'm sorry, next is Bob Joe on this.
Yes. So what are the benchmarks? One, balanced budget. Second, to have a area that where we will complete all the audits. Then we need to be community involvement. And I feel that that is so important that we have the community involvement as part of with the city staff. Leadership from our city manager. I am totally involved with making sure that we have an interim city manager coming in, and I think that's coming in soon. And with the leadership that he or she will provide, it'll be starting us in the right direction for our city. And then we also need to have a very effective strategic plan, which I truly believe in, and we will be working on with a new interim city manager.
Thank you, Bob. Same question, Alan.
Yes, I think there are four simple things that it comes down to. First is having good financial and management reporting. You can't manage what you can't see. And the reports, not just from the finance department, but from other departments, have not provided the city manager or the city council with the type of management level information that they need to make effective decisions. Second, department heads need to be held accountable for the work product of their departments. Are they getting the job done or not? Holding department heads responsible is the responsibility of the city manager, so that puts the burden on the council to manage the city manager. The last item is the number of public records requests. We've had a lot of them, which tells me there's no transparency. Fewer public records requests means that we're being a better managed city.
Thank you, Alan. Evelyn?
There are two issues that is paramount to the issue at hand. First is the lack of transparency and fiscal responsibility. These two are absent from our city. We need a responsible management of our budget, and they have to be accountable and present the budgets, the proposed budgets, in a timely manner. Also, that the lack of transparency must be in all levels, from the manager up to the lowest level of city service. Right now, that's very absent, and that has to start. And I know that commissions are being silenced for now. They should be given more power to collaborate with the residents and present their recommendation to City Council. So with those in mind, we should have a healthy government, but first and foremost,
Thank you, Evelyn. Jack, same question. Jack, can you
Unmute.
unmute yourself? Okay.
Yep. Okay, trust and transparency. We are lacking in both of them at the present time. The community must participate in large-scale safety discussions. Their voices must be respected. All city commissions should immediately be allowed to get their own agendas and report directly to the city council without obstruction by the city manager and the city staff or the city attorney, okay? Community involvement needs to happen to rebuild the broken trust that's happened in city management. Thank you.
Thank you, Jack. Michelle?
Well, I can run through some attributes. I mean, I think the first is be willing to listen to all of our community members and actually plan a way that is effective to take in that input. I think an example is like our last budget when we asked input from the community. That survey was horrible. It really was so minimal and didn't have much input. And then as a city council member, I think we need to do our homework, be much more actively involved in the process, more engaging and available to the constituents. Third attribute, be nice to people. I think that respect needs to be a little bit of a higher priority in how we deal with members of our community, but also members of city staff. Fourth attribute is, we should be able to stand for something, be proactive, be more engaged with what our issues are of the city, be a voice and a champion for some of those communities. And then, address these problems swiftly and move on. Be able to enact these things and move on to the next issue.
Thank you, Michelle. So I was almost going to start you on round 2 early, but now we are ready for it. So take a breather and get ready, because round 2 is what is called the lightning round. So you're only going to have 30 seconds to answer, and there will be no warning before you are muted. So we will start the first question of round 2 with Bob Joe. So Bob, get your mute button ready, unmute button. Do you believe residential streets such as Fremont, Meridian, and Monterey should be redesigned in response to resident safety concerns? Please discuss 2 measures that would make our streets safer.
Yes, these streets are very, very important to our community. And we need to somehow slow the traffic down on Meridian and come up with a short-term plan that allows that to happen, to include a stop sign. The other area, Fremont, and Fremont needs to be also redesigned and possibly moving the traffic from Fremont onto Fair Oaks, and do synchronization projects that we need to help move the traffic better. And my 30 seconds up? I don't know.
Thank you, Bob. Alan, same question.
Yes, 2 measures. 1, radar speed signs. They provide immediate feedback to drivers. We have them on Via Del Rey coming down the hill. People know if they're going too fast. We have them on Garfield over near the Y. And in Pasadena, they have it up on Pasadena Avenue. The police department will tell you those are like having cops there 24/7. It slows traffic down. Second, there are lots of other traffic calming measures that we can put in. Bob mentioned stop signs.
Thank you, Alan. Evelyn?
Yes to the question, and the measure that I would use are stop signs. The second one are the rectangular flashing beacons that we have currently now on Fremont by the post office. And also the other day I watched the crosswalks by the high school, and they don't do striping. We need continental crosswalk striping so that it will be safe for our children to cross from their homes to the school. And yes, then that's the.
Thank you, Evelyn. Jack? Jack, please unmute yourself. Okay, we'll restart the timer.
There you go. Okay, we need to look not only at those streets, but at the narrow streets that intersect our city to ensure the safety of the drivers and the pedestrians and the passage of emergency vehicles. On Meridian, there needs to be a comprehensive plan to lessen the amount of traffic and to ensure the safety of the residents and the vehicles alike. We need to incorporate the potential traffic issues into any new development plans for the city to ensure safety and to continue monitoring this traffic that's been a problem for the whole city for years. So, thank you.
Thank you, Jack. Michelle?
Yes, we need to work on a combination of safe street and complete street and traffic calming issues for both Meridian and Fremont, which includes stop signs and, like Evelyn had pointed out, with the continental crosswalks. Those are part of a previous plan that was already approved for our city that hasn't been enacted. But there are a variety of measures that we could put in place that, you know, we've been working on with the commission to try to get in place to constrict the traffic of pass-through traffic that is on Fremont and Meridian. And
Thank you, Michelle. John?
I think it's long past time to address these speed alleys in our neighborhoods. Residents are justifiably angry at the city's lack of action here. We need to do two things: behavior modification. A lot of these cut-through drivers need to see their speed on a speed sign and potentially have enforcement actions to modify their behavior. But beyond that, we do need to spend some money. We need stop signs, particularly at Meridian and Oak. That's a crosswalk for kids going to school. We need traffic calming measures so the drivers don't feel like they're in a speed alley. And I'll fight to make sure funding is provided for that.
Thank you, John. All right, we're starting with question 2 of our lightning round, and we're going to be starting this with Alan. So Alan, do you support an inclusionary housing ordinance that would require new multifamily developments to offer a portion of the units as affordable housing, and why?
Short and simple, yes. The last 3 housing developments approved in the city did not have any low-income housing requirements in it, and I don't understand why that was. It's not a new conversation. South Pasadena is a very diverse city, and that's what makes the city such a great place to be in. And part of diversity is having people from lower, medium, and higher incomes. A little bit of everything.
Thank you, Alan. Evelyn?
Yes, I support the inclusionary housing, affordable housing to especially low-income families. And ADU is one of them as part of the solution for the shortage of housing. And we need to support the renters because they comprise more than 55% in our city. And we make sure that we, as I said before, we don't lose them. And inclusionary means everybody we welcome to our wonderful community of ours. Thank you.
Thank you, Evelyn. Jack, same question.
Yeah, yes. Okay, we are stronger with a more diverse community. And as a city, we're going to be required to zone for a great deal more of additional housing that requires us to address affordable housing. If private developers understand that there's an ordinance already in place and will work from the beginning to include those units rather than being forced to accept them long into the planning process. Thank you.
Thank you, Jack. Michelle?
yes, I support inclusionary housing ordinance for multifamily developments. I believe it's really the only way we will get affordable housing in plans ahead of time rather than being forced to include them later without even any consideration of even CEQA laws. So I think it's imperative for us to have an inclusionary housing ordinance.
Thank you, Michelle. John?
I think it's essential we have an inclusionary zoning ordinance. We're not going to get affordable housing otherwise. We have to preserve our diversity, economic diversity as a city, and this is one of the tools. There's a lot of different things we need to do, but this is essential. And I'll have to say, developers are going to make a lot of money building market rate rents. They can afford to put some affordable units in place. We need it as a community.
Thank you, John. And Bob?
Okay. I'm on?
Yes,
Thank
you're
you.
on.
Okay. I definitely support inclusionary housing requirements, especially for affordable housing. Something really special that I, with the council, put in just recently, and that is using block grant funds of about 70,000, 60,000 to do a $1,000 grant for those renters that need help. And that is working through the Housing Authority.
Thank you, Bob. Okay, let's see. So we are now starting on question 8. So that was or question 3 of round 2. And we'll be starting then with Evelyn on this. So name one creative out-of-the-box suggestion or action to address the needs of the homeless.
I would have a commission that would issue vouchers for, especially for temporary housing, and we should have a program where we train the unhoused people for employment. So to gain employment, they have to be trained. And I work with veterans homeless in Los Angeles, and we both provide them with clothes, train them how to respond to questions in the interview. And we also need volunteer residents that our city can help to.
Thank you, Evelyn. Jack?
All right, I would start with healthcare and support services. Many homeless people either have underlying conditions that have contributed to their homelessness, and plus they need support services. We need to address these issues that are contributing to their homelessness in order to start to solve the problem. A positive start that would be to provide free support and counseling services. I also believe the city should explore partnering with the neighboring cities for social services to handle the situation, now handled by the police force, such as homelessness assistance and welfare checks.
Thank you, Jack. Michelle?
I would like to create more substantial support for moving social services away from sole purpose of the police. We've begun some measures, but we can do more, and then increasing support services as well. We've had some success with some of the services that are such as like offered at the Holy Family with the showering and the food services. I think those are successful measures, and by a lot of our homeless have a lot of mental issues, and it's unfortunate that when they're always approached by armed police officers, it creates more of a chance of a violent interaction and a scary.
Thank you, Michelle. John?
We need more transitional housing with supportive services. The only way to really get someone out of the cycle of addiction is to offer them the right kind of structure. I've been involved for 3 decades on the board of a service provider in Skid Row for homeless individuals. And I think it's time that we do something that actually cures homelessness and brings people into a caring community out of the chaos of Skid Row. And I would push for some kind of a healing, transitional, supportive services center in South Pasadena.
Thank you, John. Bob?
Okay, I'm on.
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. I worked very closely with Supervisor Barger to get Measure H grants of $186,000 to our city. with that, it was to help do the motel vouchers, to get a caseworker there working 3 days a week and at least 1 day at Holy Family. So it's a very important program, and we are spending, I think, very good money to work with the homeless. And if it
Thank you, Bob. Alan?
Utah has a very successful homeless solution that's called Housing First. Historically, most homeless facilities have a policy of you have to be drug-free, you have to be alcohol-free before we'll let you stay here. Utah takes the other approach. Let's get people into housing. Let's give them a safe place to sleep, a place where they can get a shower every day, help restore their dignity, and then the other things become much easier to do. We already have an example of this.
Thank you. Thank you, Alan. Okay, so the next question is going to start with Michelle. Given that over 50% of our residents are renters and have voiced concern about not being equally considered in city decisions, what measures would you take to ensure their inclusion?
I'm happy to go first, but I think.
Oh, you're right. You're right. I apologize. Thank you so much, Michelle. Jack, I apologize. I should have called you for this question. Jack, can you unmute yourself? Thank you. I apologize.
There you go. Okay, one simple way to ensure that we are listening to our neighbors who are both renters and homeowners is to enact a requirement that every commission include at least one member who is a tenant living here in South Pasadena. Thank you.
Thank you, Jack. And Michelle, now your turn.
Well, I like what Jack's saying, and it would be nice if someone on the council was also a renter like myself. But I think that the big thing is that we look at rent control as a city, which is something that we can start to put in place and have something for rent raises that's a little bit closer to inflation than what the state requirement is, and other preventative measures such as creating a registry for all rental properties so that we can notify renters of their rights, because a lot of unfortunately, renters still get evicted now, even with.
Thanks, Michelle. John?
I think we need to make sure that we have a fair allocation of city resources that protect renters, both in terms of their rights, but also in terms of enforcing habitability issues. And then in terms of the process of how we make decisions, I think it's important to have renter participation, the renter viewpoint. I know there's a tenants union in South Pasadena. I'd like to see that strengthened so it can have a stronger voice in public policy. Homeowners are really good about protecting their interests, and I do want to encourage renters to step up to do that. And I think I'm very open to having that included in all of our discussions and all of our policy making.
Thank you, John. Bob?
Yes, I'm on. We have already set up where I thought was very, very important, and I was very involved with it, to set up a grant of $1,000 to the folks, to the renters. And I think that is so important that we take care of them. And the other idea, which I just heard, is yes, within our commission, I think we should have guidelines to say maybe a renter should be one of the members of our commission.
Thank you, Bob. Alan?
Renters make up 50% of the city. I don't know why the other candidates are saying that only one member of a commission should be a renter. It should probably be more representative. 50% of the members of the commission should be renters. I've been a renter, I've been a homeowner here. I've been a renter for the last 8 years. I know I couldn't afford to rent my own unit today. That's scary. trust me, I will be the voice for renters on the council.
Thank you, Alan. Evelyn?
Yes, I will use the Housing Rights Association and also promote the Renters Association advocacy for the renters. And we need to use public outreach. That means designated services for the renters. And since they are limited in transportation, we need to have a registry so that we can contact them and move our meeting to where they are and advise them of their rights. And also, we need to coalesce with the landlords so that there's constant dialogue and there's.
Thank you, Evelyn. Okay, so next round of questions. We'll start off with Michelle. What does the term Black Lives Matter mean to you?
Well, quite simply, at least we could take it in the basic form as Black Lives Matter means that Black lives matter just as much as everyone else's life. And currently the system is set up differently. My mother was born in Tijuana along a journey to a better life in the US, and I grew up with stories about her family struggles of dissimulation and in discrimination, assimilation and discrimination, which played a striking contrast to my father's white upbringing. And I think that we need to look at every aspect of our city's planning and local laws and how we can make a more equitable future.
Thank you, Michelle. John?
Black Lives Matter is about a specific injustice that's has been perpetrated against Black people. And there's been far too much apathy, and it's time to stand up and say no to it, to the apathy. We need to have different tools available. We need to make sure that we're understanding our own bias. It means that we need to understand the history of Black people and the impact of slavery. And it means we need to have effective police and law enforcement training and oversight to make sure that none of these outrages happen again.
Thank you, John. Bob?
Yes. There was a Korean American family living in South Pasadena, put up a Black Lives Matter sign. Next thing happened is that they had nails on their driveway. So what we did, and we being Michael and I, we had a resolution for the city of South Pasadena committed to diversity and safeguarding the civil rights of all residents. That was so important that we, and in particular, us, Michael and I, got together and put this resolution together. And
Thank you, Bob. Alan?
Yes. Black Lives Matter, I prefer to broaden it. We're really talking about all people of color, and members of the Latinx community in South Pasadena have always said that they've felt excluded from what's going on. And years ago, Dave Cifuentes was on the city council, and I'm like, well, we've got a Hispanic city councilman and mayor. What are they talking about? And when the Malfresco project went up, the only restaurant that doesn't have K-rails out in front of it is the Mexican restaurant. That.
Thank you, Alan. Evelyn?
Black Lives Matter mean to me that it really hit its pinnacle on the murder of George Floyd. And it's time, it's a worldwide issue of unjustified killings of Black people. And we need to work with youth reformers and other social justice groups to eliminate discrimination against Black people or any other people of color. Thank you.
Thank you, Evelyn. Jack?
Having grown up north of Boston, I know racism and poverty firsthand, as I was surrounded by both. I also started my career working for Vista and served the East Side Los Angeles as a community, East Side LA community as a volunteer. I was happy to see more and more people are finally seeking to listen and to understand firsthand what racism means. As a city council person, I'll support the hiring of talented individuals to rebuild our city government with a team that truly reflects the diversity of Southern California to deliver the highest level of service to our residents.
Thank you, Jack. Michelle? Oh. I started with you, didn't I? Sorry. I don't know why I keep messing up on you, Michelle. Sorry. Okay. You're going to get another shot at this. No, okay. So the last question on this round goes to John. So John, in the spirit of transparency, please disclose any campaign contributions you have accepted or plan to accept from the police and fire unions and from any businesses that contract with the city.
I have received no contributions from the police and fire union. I have no plans to accept any. There's one business that has contacted me about making a donation, that is Athens. I know their representative for many years through the Chamber of Commerce. He expressed an interest in making a donation. I plan to accept a very small donation, but it will not be anything substantial. So that's all I have to report on that. And no other businesses.
I'm sorry, Bob?
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. I have not accepted and not planning to accept any funding from the police and fire or from any businesses that have contracts, with our city. I, just like was mentioned earlier about Athens, they are willing to give me some support money because they had a big fire in their in their trash truck right in front of my house. And they're trying to help take care of some of the damages that have occurred to my house. So they're helping me pay for those damages, like cleaning the street.
Thank you, Bob. Alan?
I have not solicited or accepted any campaign contributions from police or fire unions or any individual police officers or members of the fire department. And I have not accepted any contributions from business that's has contracts with the city.
Thank you, Alan. Evelyn?
I have not received nor plan to accept any donations from the police and fire, and I have not accepted any donations from businesses that contracts with the city, and I'm not planning to accept any. Thank you.
Thank you, Evelyn. Jack?
Oh, there it is. Hey, I have not accepted any contributions from the fire or police unions in the city, nor have I accepted any contributions from anybody in the city that has done contracts with the city, nor do I plan to.
Thank you, Jack. Michelle?
I have not accepted any campaign contributions from the police or fire unions. While I am endorsed by many of the local businesses, I am not accepting contributions because they're hurting enough as it is. And since I am an environmental forward candidate, I would not accept a contribution from Athens as I have issues with our contract with Athens.
Thank you, Michelle. Okay, so before we start round 3, each of the candidates will be given 1 minute to either rebut any claims that have been made against them or to clarify their positions on any of their previous answers. So we're going to start that with Bob Joe. Bob? Bob?
Okay. I'm good. I'm on. There are things that the city gets involved with, and I really want to emphasize that getting a new city manager or an interim city manager is a major, major effort. And we hope to bring that person on very, very soon because we do need new leadership. And also involved with the interim or with the acting assistant city manager to get our finances and our finance department in order. Those are so important, and as mayor, it was very key in getting our council moving toward getting those two positions filled and moving right away. The other area is it's been an unprecedented year as mayor, and I will tell you there are so many things that been thrown at us as a city and as a city.
Bob, thank you. Alan?
First off, I couldn't agree with Bob more. We do need new leadership in the city. In regards to the city manager, given that the council's about to have a changeover in 2 months, while I strongly support that the current council pick a qualified interim manager, I would say that it would be premature for the council to pick a new city manager until the new council is seated. Thank you.
Thank you, Alan. Evelyn?
Yes, I agree that it's premature to appoint a manager, but a qualified interim manager with experience is necessary to transition and to lead our city from 2020 to 2021 with a new city council. Thank you.
Thank you, Evelyn. Jack?
Okay, I have nothing extra I'd like to add at this time. Thank you.
Michelle? Thank you. Michelle, do you have anything?
I would just like to add that, yes, I think we need to place special care in who we act as the interim city manager, and that they are more, give more power and lean into the commissions that we have. We as a city have many more commissions than most cities, and they're comprised of people who are very knowledgeable and understand past issues and things that are in place. And I think that will be integral at this measure with in this interim time period. Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. John?
I have 3 things. I think there's an argument that was made implicitly that because I'm a homeowner, maybe I am not going to be effective in representing renters. I'd just like to say that I've been a renter who's been an advocate. I've advocated for affordable housing. I've led a rent strike. I know what it's like to be a renter that has been hard pressed to come up with money. I've dealt with landlords. So the argument I may not be effective in representing renters, I don't think works because I have a big life experience in that. Second, on affordable housing, I think we need to build more housing. We have a plan for 500 units over the next 10 years. And I think that would be the right goal. It's the product of a 4-year process. I think it represents the general consensus. Instead of 2,000, let's build 500. I think we can get some affordable units in that 500.
Thank you, John. So take a breath. We're going to start round 3. And these are questions that came from the audience. These questions will also be posted in the South Pasadenan as well as the newsletter. And they will all be posted on the website, the townhallsouthpass.com. And the group WISPPA and South Pasadena will follow up with each of the candidates to make sure that that their answers are published. Okay, so you guys ready for round 3? Okay, round 3, we're going to start with Alan again. So let me get the questions. All right, Alan, you ready? Given that more than half of the city is registered as a Democrat, it is important to know the city's residents are represented. So I would like to know, what political party are you registered as?
I've lived in California 35 years, and the entire time I've been registered declined to state.
Okay, same question, Evelyn.
This is a nonpartisan municipal election, so I'm going to also decline to state.
Hey, Jack.
Muted.
Jack, you were muted.
I'm sorry. This is a nonpartisan election, and I'm going to decline to state.
Hey, Michelle.
It is a nonpartisan election, but I feel it gives it insight into who I am and what my decisions are, and I am a lifelong Democrat.
John, I'm sorry, John.
That's okay. I strongly believe that our local politics that are nonpartisan should not really, we shouldn't align with a party. That said, I'm declined to state. My entire household is registered Democrats.
Thank you, John. And Bob? Bob?
It's a nonpartisan position, and I declined to state a position, and I've done that for the last 10 years as the city council member. Thank you.
Okay, so next question. I just want to remind the candidates that everyone has 30 seconds to answer these questions. Okay. Would you seek, I'm sorry, we'll start this with Evelyn. So would you seek to have a community panel as part of the selection process for the new city manager comprised of residents and/or commissioners?
I would agree to that on a qualified basis, that the residents and the commissioners that are involved are well qualified in assessing the qualification of a good and excellent city manager.
Jack?
No,
Jack, I think you're muted.
I'm sorry.
That's
I'm
okay.
doing that. At any rate, no, I think candidates come from outside the city. I think that it's an extremely important position, and we need the most qualified person we can get. I don't care if they live 50 miles away. If they're qualified, we hire them.
Thank you, Jack. Thank you. Michelle?
I would be in favor of putting a commission together to be part of the decision-making process, as long as we could do it swiftly and that it is comprised of some of the established commission members.
Thank you, Michelle. John?
No, I would not support a community process for choosing the city manager, because that is the classic, most important decision of the city council. And I don't think it should be delegated. You want your council to have buy-in. You want them to form a strong bond with their city manager, because their reputation is going to rise or fall with that manager. If you outsource it to a community, you're going to get dissipated decision-making, which means no one's responsible and you don't have accountability. The city council can represent the community. They're out there listening. They can listen to every stakeholder, but they have to fulfill their job, which is to pick a good city manager.
Thank you, John. Bob?
Yes. Oh, shoot. Am I on now?
Yes, you're on.
Okay. I support a committee review for input, for discussion, and then to provide any input to the city council. I think it is important to get input from the community, but it's up to the city council itself to make the decision on who the city manager will be. And there probably will come up with a recruiting.
Thank you, Alan.
In the past, the city has always convened community panels to elicit, okay, what qualities are important for whichever position it is that's being hired. And I would see that the council can do that to get feedback from the residents. I think they pretty much know what the residents want, but process again. And when they get down to the final 3 or the final 5 candidates, I would like to see a citizen commission involved, because maybe those folks see something else.
Thank you, Alan. Okay, the next question is going to start with Jack. So, hang on. Okay, so Jack, all of the candidates have pointed out problems with the budget. Will you, as a council member, push to permanently delete the council members' discretionary funds?
There you go. To eliminate the discretionary fund, was that your question?
Yes, yes.
No, I think they should be able to keep the discretionary fund. My answer is yes, they can keep it.
Thank you. Next, Michelle.
I would support keeping the discretionary fund in place. And oftentimes in the past, it's been used for more grassroots community involvement. Like, I know one personally, it definitely helped our community garden get in place, but there's been a lot of instances. Another one was going to be used for an art project. They're nominal, and I think that they are a good way for city council to be directly involved with the community.
Thank you, Michelle. John?
I think the discretionary funds have done a lot of good, but I do think there's a lot of skepticism about how they've been used. I would propose a 2-year moratorium on the discretionary fund until the community kind of gets back to a level of trust in the city's finances. And at that point, we can return the discretionary fund to the council members. I do think they're great seed money for a lot of good projects. So I'm not categorically opposed. It's just not the right time right now.
Thank you, John. Bob?
On our budget and shortfalls, we as a council have said we will not include discretionary funds in the next year's budget. I totally support that. Even though there's not a whole lot of funds involved, it shows that we recognize the cuts that are required for our budget.
Thank you, Bob. Alan?
I'm going to say no, it needs to go. The first thing that needs to go is that discretionary funds don't carry over from year to year, which is what currently happens. It's the taxpayers' money, and if a council person doesn't use it for projects in the current year, it should come back to the taxpayers. Second, and the reason I say no is in this last year, we saw council members trying to use their discretionary dollars to pay for political surveys and public relations consultants. That's not what it's for.
Thank you, Alan. Evelyn?
I would support a moratorium for a limited period of time, but due to the post-COVID, uncertainty, we are not ready to waste taxpayers' money. So I would do away with discretionary funds for a limited period of time until we are back on our feet.
I'm sorry, we'll start with Michelle on the next one. Let's see. So the mayor has been in office for 8 years while he states what the city needs to do regarding traffic safety on Mission, Fremont, and Meridian. Can he tell us what the city has done in the last 5 years towards this effort? And this issue is not new to South Pasadena, so I guess this is really directed more to Bob Joe. So I'll go ahead and let Bob answer that, and then let the other candidates, I'll start the other candidates and right after that. Bob, do you want to answer that?
I'm sorry. Can you read the question again, Linda?
So this was directed that the mayor has been in office for 8 years while he states what the city needs to do regarding traffic safety on Mission, Fremont, and Meridian. Can you tell us what the city has done in the last Mission, Fremont, and Meridian? Can you tell us what the city has done in the last 5 years towards this effort? This is an issue not new to South Pasadena.
Okay. There are many programs that we are going to be using in looking at the traffic and parking situations here on these streets that were mentioned. In particular with Mission, we're looking at seeing if we could provide or close down a lane on either side to add more for alfresco. The Fremont, there is a plan that I mentioned that we're going to be looking at moving the traffic off of Fremont onto Fair Oaks with synchronization and all. And on Meridian, we definitely need to have a traffic calming plan there, and to include stop signs that we could put in immediately, and the radar speed, reback, and other kinds of, and the crosswalks. We need to upgrade our crosswalks there too. I mean, we got flashing lights there that used to be there, but not working at all. And one of the things is to get our operations folks to
Thank you, Bob. Since that was directed at Bob, and I think this was a question that actually went to all the candidates, I don't think we need to do a round robin. So someone can raise their hand in the chat if they want me to go back to it. But we do have some other questions for the candidates that came from the audience. So let's see here, okay, so let me start this with Michelle. Michelle, regarding weekend customer service, there needs to be a hotline for city services separate from the police for public works issues available on the weekend. What are your thoughts on this?
I think that is something that should be looked into. I mean, as of right now, I know that I think I've even used the non-emergency police number in an instance, but it shouldn't be that way. So that could be a possibility as part of when we reassess the budget. I do feel like was that last question, was that my turn for the safe streets? Because as far as we aren't going to go through each person for that one.
Well, it was a question. It was actually a question that was asked previously in round one. And so the candidates did, I think, answer this. And then I think that the audience had an issue or wanted clarification from the mayor. So I gave him a chance to answer. And if you feel that you want to add something to that?
Well, that not much of anything has been done for the last 5 years, I think would be a clearer answer to the question. And we were given a plan of Fremont that was basically a copy plan of what was presented in 2011. So we're behind on both Fremont and Meridian.
Okay, all right. So I guess I'm gonna just do a round robin then, because I don't want to keep going back to this. So John, did you have anything that you wanted to add to that? You can just tell me, and or else we'll go on. I'll just go on to the next.
You mean what, acknowledging that nothing really has been done?
Right. So it was a question to Bob Joe.
Oh, well, I hereby acknowledge nothing's been done.
Okay, thank you. Alan, did you want to add anything?
Of course. There is a little something that's been done, which is the city keeps on requesting more studies to study it again. Except in January, when they did a study on Meridian, they didn't measure speed. Well, how are you going to calm speed if you don't measure it? That's a problem. I do want to take credit for getting the vertical safety panels at the pedestrian crossings at Fremont and Linden Street and at other spots around the city, which were dangerous places for the high school students and middle school students to cross the street. It took.
Thanks. Thank you. Evelyn, did you want to add anything to this?
Yes. In the last 5 years, nothing has been done. And even though there was an approval to put in stop signs 10 years ago, that was met with deaf ears from the city. So it's overdue.
Hey, Jack, did you want to add anything?
Yes, I do. Okay. I haven't seen any changes in Meridian in over 5 years. Okay. And it's definitely a traffic safety problem. Has to be dealt with immediately. That stop sign at the corner of Oak and that should be put in tomorrow. Okay, that should have been put in years ago. And the whole street needs to be dealt with. The section between Monterey Road and into Los Angeles, that's the most urgent, but all Meridian, all the way up into the Buena Vista area needs to be dealt with.
Thanks, Jack. You know, I'm getting kind of feedback that everyone should be rebutting or have a chance to rebut, but I think that we've already done the rebuttals, and I think in fairness to the audience, we need to go on to the questions. So I did ask a question to Michelle, who started in, and so I'm going to ask the same question. Let me go back because it has been a little time, and John will answer the question. Or the question goes to John next. On the weekend customer service, there needs to be a hotline for city services separate from the police and the public works issues available on the weekend. What are your thoughts?
It can't be a hotline that goes to a circular file that goes nowhere. I think you need to be able to support whatever service you're going to provide on the weekend. The city can't make promises it can't deliver on. It'd be great to have a hotline. It'd be great to have responsive employees on the weekend. That costs a lot of money. We got to make sure we put it in place before we raise everybody's expectations. That said, we've got a lot of work to do to improve customer service around the city.
Thank you, John. Bob? Regarding weekend customer service? Do you want me to repeat the question?
Yeah, please.
Okay. So regarding weekend customer service, there needs to be a hotline for city services separate from the police or public works issues available on the weekend. What are your thoughts?
I'm very supportive of a hotline because that at least gets it started. We could start finding out during the weekend what services maybe we need to provide. But the hotline is very, very important. And think about it too. It's not just because of the police or fire, but what about when there's a break in the water line? we have to get those folks from Public Works out there working. And they've been trying to get their repairs done in 4 or 5 hours, but
Thank you, Bob. Alan?
First off, we should better promote the police non-emergency phone line so that residents have an alternative to calling 911. That facility is staffed 24/7. The other option is that LA County and LA City have the 211 number where you can call 24/7 and get information about what city services are available. So we don't have to recreate the wheel. We can negotiate something with the county to piggyback on the existing system. Thank you.
Thank you, Alan. Evelyn?
Yes, a coalition of, I would favor the use of our residents. We have a robust volunteers, and they could staff an emergency line, because we know our city, and what better use of our hometown resources without expenditure or spending unnecessary things. But we need that hotline, because the most recent power outage, nobody heard the complaints in Las Palmitas Avenue, and they were out.
Thank you, Evelyn. Jack?
Okay. I unmuted?
Yes, you're unmuted. Thank you.
Thanks. Okay, there needs a way for the community to address issues within the city on weekends. There really should be a hotline, and it should be manned all weekend. So I don't necessarily agree with Evelyn on the volunteers. I think it's important enough that we have a hotline. Thank you.
Thank you, Jack. Okay, the next question is going to start with John. The question is, hang on. Sorry, I just had this. Oh, how can you find the critical balance between housing development and traffic? John?
Yeah, I think we are, in the last 15 to 20 years, the discussion has been about how do we get away from a car-centered neighborhoods, car-centered cities. And we've developed mass transit. We've done a lot of work around that. And we now can know that when transit-oriented development comes in, it doesn't generate as much car traffic. It doesn't require as much parking. So we can balance our housing, build development without increasing our traffic or even our parking requirements.
Thank you, John. Bob? And if any of the candidates want me to repeat the question, just tell me. Otherwise, I'm assuming that you remember it.
please repeat it.
Okay, how would you find the critical balance between housing development and traffic?
Okay. First of all, do we believe in pedestrian-friendly streets and sidewalks? If we do, that will go a long way in working with this traffic problem. We also need to understand how important we have the goal line. And with the goal line, we can provide better transit in and out of our city. But we need to always, as we work with the development, to provide appropriate parking in every area like the Mission Street Pacific.
Alan, I'm sorry.
Studies and reports from the LA Times have shown us that transit-oriented development is a myth in terms of getting cars off the road, just like building more freeway lanes is a myth, that it's going to ease traffic. Specifically, the LA Times studied Mission Meridian, which was supposed to greatly reduce the number of cars on the city, on city streets, and it didn't happen. That's empirical evidence. For urban planners, I want to call it, it's the planning scheme du jour, but we need to be more realistic about that. We also need to be more realistic
Okay, Evelyn?
Yes. Housing is, if we increase housing, we also have to plan carefully the transportation and the impact in the environment. Providing a pedestrian-friendly, safe biking and whatever mode of transportation that you have to reduce the carbon footprint and to reduce emission of gases. I'm all for it, and that should be in the careful city planning and coordinate with the housing development.
Thank you, Evelyn. Jack? 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 Okay, Michelle, why don't I go to you and then I'll go back to Jack.
Okay, well, we need to provide better infrastructure to support our transit to make sure that we have better pedestrian and micro mobility access in first and last mile. And it would be nice if we were actually participate in the Vision Zero as well. And I believe that that LA Times story was very outdated in that a lot of improvements have come and ideas, not only reducing parking minimums by transit, but also you put in place that there are parking restrictions around the building. So really the tenants that go into that structure have to be transit minded. And then you can also do incentives of free public transit and car share that can be offered as well. They're doing it in other cities.
Thank you, Michelle. Jack, are you able to unmute yourself and answer this final question?
Okay, unmuted. Am I unmuted?
Yes, you are.
Okay, thank you. I think I answered this earlier, but we'll answer it again. We need for any development, we need community input with a solid approach between the city, the schools, officials, and the neighborhood and business leaders to have a comprehensive plan to grow the community responsibly and substantially. Any new housing, okay, requires a traffic study. Traffic, as we all know, is a major problem in the city. Thank you.
Thank you, Jack. And Michelle? Oh, Michelle, you already answered, sorry. All right, so hey, we're at the end. This wasn't too bad, was it? Okay. All right.
Funny you ask.
Hey, you guys are all still standing, so that's good. Well, and I want to thank the audience for these great questions, and I hope you got the answers and you really have a good feel for the candidates. So we're going to go ahead and start with the closing statements, and you all have 1 minute on the closing. And as I said, we are going to start in reverse order on this. So first off, we'll start with Bob Joe. Bob?
Thank you. I am the city council candidate best suited to serve the city and District 1. I am experienced, knowledgeable, collaborative, and a problem solver. These skills are enabling me to navigate the complex leadership and pandemic-related economic challenges before us, and I hope to continue this in my next term. I am committed full-time to the community, always focused on what is best for the city. My area of expertise includes senior programs, business growth, development, transportation, homeless services. And lastly, I want to restore confidence in the city government and achieve fiscal stability during and after changes in leadership and on the corona pandemic. Thank you so much, and I appreciate both Linda and the South Pasadena and WISPPA. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. John?
Thank you, South Pasadena, and thank you, WISPPA, for organizing this. I've really enjoyed it. The critical thing that's missing, and this is a huge part of my push, I'm just hoping all the candidates can adopt this idea. We need a healthy governing culture on the council. We need to have core values that guide everything that happens in the city, from the city manager on down. Those values need to be something like transparency, respect, and collaboration. When you have a healthy culture, problems don't happen. When you have a healthy culture, people get coached to do the right thing. If you had had those values, a lot of the problems that we had, that we've experienced, would have not materialized. We would have disclosed the budget issues, the finance operation issues. We would have served a subpoena, not with police officers. That lawsuit has now become a monster. We would have collaborated effectively with our commissioners and they wouldn't feel sidelined. If we have a governing culture, this train wreck is not going to last, because we will get a city manager and a finance director who want to build their career in our great town. They know that we are smart, that we are supportive, and we can work together. Once we have core values that everyone gets around, we can move forward together.
Thank you, John. Michelle?
So you don't need me to tell you times are tough. We've stayed home to stem the spread of coronavirus, and now we've shut our windows to protect our lungs from wildfire smoke. Nationally, our democracy is in peril, while locally we are bracing for difficult choices ahead as we prepare for a long road of recovery. We all need to rise up to the challenge of making this world and our small town a part of it, more inclusive, equitable, resilient, and just. I am answering the call to step up and serve this mission by representing you and our neighbors at the City Council. A vote for me ensures a council member that will always be part of the solution, bring people together, and put the community's needs first. Thank you to Linda, WISPPA, and South Pasadena for this opportunity to speak and reach a wider audience during COVID.
And thank you, Michelle. Jack? Jack, you're muted. Please unmute yourself. We'll start the timer again. Great, thank you.
I feel fortunate, been part of the city for almost 40 years. I treasure everything about South Pasadena, except for the direction it's been heading the last few years. The time has come for a change, and I want to change this trend, this direction immediately. Okay, I believe in the city. I believe that we can all do better. I believe we must do better. This is why I'm running for city council. I would like you to find out more about me, my endorsements, my platform, my biography. You can go to my website on Donovan 2020. Thank you, WISPPA, and especially Linda Waugh for organizing this debate. Good night.
Thank you, Jack. And Evelyn?
South Pasadena desperately needs a voice for change, commitment to neighborhoods, and a return to fiscal responsibility. It's time to restore trust in City Hall. Our community spirit is made stronger when residents participate in decision-making. Our city lacks leadership at the moment, but we are trying to right the wrong. And we are faced with challenging and uncertain times. With the collaboration of everyone in the city, we can rise and be whole again. We are broken right now, but we are resilient. And you need to exercise your vote on November 3rd, because that's the only way that we can hear your voices. Thank you, WISPPA. Thank you, South Pasadena, and thank you, Linda Waugh, for moderating this candidates forum. Thank you.
Thank you, Evelyn. Alan, last but not least.
Thank you. Like everybody, We need to restore trust and integrity in both our city officials and our financial operations. To John's point, we need a statement of values that'll help guide the city. That statement of values is already hanging on the wall in the city council chambers. So I think what we need are new pairs of glasses for the city council people so they can read that sign. I want to remind viewers that are watching this that I've got over 20 years of finance and operations experience, and I'm ready to jump in from day one. There's not going to be a learning curve with me. I've been studying city problems for over a year. Please learn more. Come to my website, www.southpassionate.com. Thank you. I hope I've earned your vote today. Thank you.
Thank you, Alan. So please give a round of applause from your home for our candidates for South Pasadena for District 1, Bob Joe and Evelyn Zeimer. For District 2, Jack Donovan. District 3, Alan Ehrlich, Michelle Hammond, and John Primuth. I think they did an outstanding job. And give yourselves all a hand too, because I think at one point we had 167 participants. This is more than we could have packed into City Hall. And it shows what a great and engaged community South Pasadena is. And I hope you got great information about these candidates. Yeah, great work, everyone. A little applause here for all of you. I just want to remind everyone that you can find all the questions and the answers in the South Pasadena and on the southpasadenan.com candidate forum website, and it will be posted in the WISPPA newsletter. And the South Pasadena will be following up with the candidates to make sure that their answers are recorded correctly. And I know we didn't get to all the questions from the audience. I think we had a couple more left over, but we will be following up with the candidates on those questions. Thank you all for being such a great participative community. Thank you to our candidates. Thank you to WISPPA and the South Pasadena. Good night.
Good night.